Frisco 911, what is the location of the emergency?
Hi, we're at Kuykendall Stadium. My friend just got stabbed.
Now, for the first time, we're seeing the footage that helped convince jurors Karmelo Anthony was guilty of murdering Austin Metcalf.
What's your name, man?
Karmelo Anthony, K-A-R-M-E-L-O.
Shocking new body cam captures Anthony's first words about what he claims happened.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
But does the video tell a different story? We have the body cam, the surveillance, and the moments that turned track meet mayhem into a cold-blooded murder. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We have a lot to get to in this episode. Cody Thomas from Court TV, who was one of the few journalists in the courtroom for the entire trial, will be here in a moment to break down what we're looking at as we go through this surveillance video of the moment Karmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf, as well as some of the pictures that have now been made public. One of the challenges in covering this trial was no cameras were allowed. So we would hear about this surveillance video, which you're about to see, of the alleged confrontation between Anthony and Metcalf, and we would read the police documents that laid out what Anthony allegedly said to officers on that day. But now, after the verdict, and now that Anthony is in prison for as long as 35 years, we are seeing the evidence that everyone inside the courtroom was able to see during this trial.
Suspect.
Okay. I am. No, I'm not. I know how it goes. I'm not alleged. Okay.
That is body cam video of an officer arriving on scene after Karmelo Anthony had already been placed in handcuffs. And in that body cam, you can hear Anthony tell the officer that he is not alleged to have stabbed Austin Metcalf. He says he did it. We do have more body cam video to show you here in just a moment, but I want to begin with the 911 call that came in from the track meet in Frisco, Texas in April of last year.
Frisco 911, what is the location of the emergency?
Hi, we're at Kuykendall Stadium. My friend just got stabbed.
Okay, do you know who stabbed him?
We have no clue. He was sitting in our tent, but you need to send an ambulance right now.
They're on the way, okay? Give me a description of the person that stabbed him.
He was wearing a gray Essentials hoodie. He was black. He's standing out on the track right now.
He's standing on the track?
Yes.
Okay.
His blue sweatpants on and done.
Okay, what did he stab your friend with?
I don't know. My friend's bleeding everywhere.
Okay. Where was he stabbed at?
The chest.
Okay. And do you still see the person that stabbed him, or did he leave?
It was Austin. Austin got stabbed in the chest. I'm sorry, what did you say?
The person that stabbed him, is he still there? Do you still see him?
Coaches detained Karmelo until police arrived, and you hear in that call so much chaos and panic as people are tending to Austin Metcalf. Austin would die from a stab wound to the chest, and at trial, the medical examiner said there was no way that Austin could have survived an injury that severe. Now, this is a 911 call from a coach who is trying to save Austin's life.
We have Army veteran that's trying to keep compression on the wound.
Okay. Are you with him now?
He is laying here.
How old is he?
Starting to go unconscious.
How old is he?
High school age, so maybe 15, 16, 17.
Okay. Is he awake?
No, he's going unconscious.
Okay. Is he breathing?
Not right now.
Breathing.
No, he's not.
He's not breathing at all?
No.
Okay. Where was he stabbed at?
In his chest.
There was a moment as we go through these 911 calls where coaches thought that Austin started breathing again and that there was this sign of hope that he could survive. But the Army veteran who was tending to Austin, he was also a coach, he testified at trial. He told jurors that he knew that Austin was gone. And I want you to listen just to the background of this call here as coaches are doing chest compressions on Austin Metcalf. Listen to the chaos.
Freaking out, and they were just trying to contain him.
Okay.
Give me a breath, Austin. Give me a breath, Austin. Give me a breath, Austin.
Let me know when they're with you, okay? Like I said, I'm not going to do nothing until they're with you. Let me know if he stops breathing, okay?
Okay. Come on, Austin. Come on, Austin. Come on, back. Come on, you got this. Come on.
Okay, we got the suspect, okay? So you guys just focus on him, okay?
Okay, thank you. Come on. Every once in a while, there's a breath that he's here. Come on.
I'm going to keep you with me, okay, until they're with you. Is he breathing still?
He's trying, yeah. We're doing compressions and giving him mouth-to-mouth.
Okay.
Austin died at that track. I want to show you now the body cam video of when officers detained Karmelo Anthony, and I want you to listen to what Karmelo says and how his tone changes as he perhaps realizes what he just did.
Hold on.
And I'm just protecting myself.
If somebody is treating the victim, they need to be over there.
North end under a memorial tent.
Don't reach for anything, all right, man? Stop right there for me. Dispatch 443, I got the suspects, and they're currently treating the victim. Again, he's on the north end of the stadium. All right, any weapons on you like that? Come on. I'll look here.
How long? He put his hands up. I know I'm not.
4-4, copy, I'll be in route.
Help me, y'all back up a little bit. Come over here for me. Come over here.
447, clear.
I'm gonna put your handcuffs for now, okay? Dispatch 443, everybody can slow down. I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Everyone else can slow down. Suspects detained in handcuffs.
Hold on. You can open up the channel, and medics are clear to come in. Have them come to the northeast entrance. That's gonna be a gate that's wide open there, and then you come to the victim from there.
Received.
This is the alleged suspect. All right, bye.
Dispatch is 432.
Huh? Okay. We'll figure that in a minute. So nothing on your person at all?
No, sir.
Nothing?
No, sir.
Mind if I reach in your pockets and stuff and all that? Nothing gonna stab me?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to be out with this as well.
My phone.
Racing.
I'm gonna get a little personal there, okay? Just to make sure.
My car's right there.
Okay.
You want me to get up now?
Come on. All right. The victim's gonna be underneath that tent over there, so I'll get medics. Memorial tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
What's happening right now? Victim is over here on the north end. They got staff standing to him right now. This is the alleged suspect. Okay. Already? No. Already searched them. Got nothing on
I
him.
don't know what happened.
423. Trackers have negative CPR progress for a little bit.
Racing.
You know, that's the wrong thing.
Racing.
Come on, side over here or side? Up to you. It's up to you.
That's fine. This is closer.
Okay. Let me do one more little check of you, okay?
Yes, sir.
You don't mind if I reach in your pockets, anything like that? You good?
Well, you're just wearing this one pair of pants?
I'm wearing some little under.
Oh, yeah. But it's not
Like,
blocking
no, ma'am, I don't think so.
What's your name, man?
Karmelo Anthony, Karmelo.
430, show me out.
Okay.
Racing.
Have a seat here real quick, man. Watch your head. Let me check your hood here, buddy, okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, lean this way so you're not resting on your hands, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, see a little bit of blood on your hands there, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
402, I'm on scene.
So your first name is Karmelo?
Yes, sir.
Racing.
Karmelo.
Let's see, hold on one second.
Is he gonna be okay?
I don't know yet, man. Karmelo, C-A-R-A.
K-A-R.
K-A-R-M-E-L-O.
M-E-L-O.
Karmelo, what's your last name?
Anthony.
A-N-T-H-O-N-Y.
O-N-Y.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 12th grade.
10th grade? You go to Emerson?
No, sir.
Where do you go? Centennial. Okay.
I'm in 12th grade.
12th grade?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no Centennial. All right, sit tight for me real quick, bud, all right?
There is no up-close video of the stabbing of Austin Metcalf. There is only this angle of the confrontation. It is from a camera that was mounted on the top of the stadium where the meet took place, and the camera is pointed at the tent which belonged to Austin Metcalf's team. Karmelo's defense team argued at trial that Karmelo was invited under the tent, that he had a friend of his girlfriend who was on Austin Metcalf's team, and that friend had waved him over. Now, the state argued that Karmelo never should have been under an opposing team's tent and that he refused to leave when he was told to go. And that led to a confrontation and a shove that turned to murder. Join us now to talk more about the evidence that we're all now seeing on the outside for the first time is Cody Thomas from Court TV, who is in the courtroom for the entire trial of Karmelo Anthony. So here's the surveillance video, and you described it as like in you know, I don't know directly the words, but it's like you can't really take a lot away from it because like you see the moment, you see some sort of scuffling, perhaps the shove inside of the tent. But to your point, I mean, it's not a lot when it comes to maybe what people were hoping they were going to see when they see this. Like, what stands out to you now that we're all kind of watching what you were describing in the courtroom?
Yeah. If you remember when I described Chris, I described it that same way. You can tell that it's very zoomed in. You know, it's over pixelated because, you know, the camera's coming from across the football field. But of course, everyone has highlighted the moment, you know, that everyone's, you know, dissected it, and you see what is, you know, assumed to be the shove. And you can see, again, the force of the shove. You see that it's a push. But other than that, you can't really, even in the courtroom, it was never specified because it was a big deal about who was standing, who was sitting, who was where, who was this and that. It was never really specified under the tent who was who. Of course, after the shove, you see immediately 2 to 3 seconds later, you see Karmelo, who is highlighted and spot shadowed, run, you know, to the 3 or 4 or 5 bleachers up, which is also where the knife was found. That's where the knife was found, you know, where they threw it and the body cam caught it up. But then you see him running away. But that's about the only, you know, distinguished individual we see in that video. But of course, what stands out is just the moment itself, because the minutes leading up to the moment are just, you know, people are just there. It's just these humanoid figures under the tent. You see people walking by. There's not really much of a commotion happening outside of the shove. And even when you watch the moment of the shove, you don't really see too much going on outside of the shove itself. And then all of a sudden you see a bunch of dispersing and scattering because, you know, people are realizing, oh, somebody's been stabbed here. But again, the video had minimal things to take away outside of the moment itself.
Right. And I was surprised because I remember there was one witness near the end where the prosecution was able to kind of point them out and say, like, so this is where you were at that time. And it's like, I don't even know how they were able to do that because I feel like I'm just looking at pixels. You know, like these little, you know, and you understand that there's a ton of people under the tent. You see the colors of Austin Metcalf's school. It's about 7 minutes, 59 seconds in, like the shove happens. I will say you can take away from this kind of the force of the shove, because it seems like, you know, Metcalf, you see him kind of shove, and then there's a reaction from Karmelo, and then we'll talk about like what he does after. But I think that was something. I mean, I look at this, and it wasn't, if you were someone who was, you know, on the side of the defense, it feels like it's a shove. I mean, that's what it is. It doesn't seem like it's this aggressive punch or something like that. And how do you remember that playing out in the courtroom, just that particular part and kind of the force and how it was described?
You know, there wasn't really much of a real reaction to it because another thing I take away from this, the moment of the video, Chris, is that, you know, the defense was saying, we've heard all through, you know, the social media and the interviews with Karmelo's parents, is that he was like more or less being jumped by a collection of students, you know, 3 to 4 students. The moment in the video doesn't really depict that in any specificity. Of course, again, very pixelated, very, you know, not as quality as we would have liked it to be, but you don't see that at all, you know, because that, to me, that would be a lot more commotion going on. But as far as in the courtroom, the video is shown, and it's kind of like you and I watching it here. It wasn't much of a, you know, I was expecting cell phone video. You know, all these teenagers have their phones out, and you're going to see something really graphic, up close and personal, great quality, lots of yelling. And now we have this silent video that looks like it was filmed at a Quick Trip. So it was like people saw the moment, but there was no shocking, you know, no gasp. It was just, oh, here it is. And, you know, the prosecution even prefaced before they played it, like 2 minutes before they played it, hey, you're not going to be able to see much here. This is why we have this forensic video analyst to kind of talk to us about how he identified who, and the other different angles of coming in the gates. And we saw Karmelo in a lighter colored hoodie and Austin in these colored shoes. Like, he walked through all that before you got to the moment, because he had to, because if there was none of that, you wouldn't know who you were looking at, right? I mean, you could probably make an assumption based after the moment who's running away and whatever else, but everything leading up to that, you wouldn't know anything.
No, and even looking at the shove now, as you're talking, I'm kind of like just on the final like kind of 5 seconds leading up to it, and then you see it, and it's like there's not really from who I can see as Austin Metcalf, it's like there's not a lot of separation between the two. It's not like a shove where Karmelo almost like falls backwards even.
Yeah.
And it's like if
Not
Austin
like
came
throwing
out, like
him or anything.
it literally is like they're not separated at all. It seems like he had him the entire time. I do think, and there were some questions, I think Carmelo Anthony's parents brought it up, where it's like there's so much, it seems like some of the testimony perhaps varied when it comes to how strong the shove was, this and that. And like you do take away where it's like this was almost a year ago, more than a year ago, that all of this happened. And it's so bang, bang, where it's like to remember that moment over and over and over again. I mean, especially when there's not a lot of video, which is surprising because you would think since they were alleged to kind of have been going back and forth, nobody took out a camera phone, which seems to happen a lot. I was surprised like just how quickly it happened, and then the force itself. We do see as the video continues on, you can see Carmelo Anthony, he leaves the tent, he goes up the bleachers, and then I'm just playing it here, and he's kind of like running down the bleachers a little bit. You see someone kind of going after him and then running back to the tent. And then Carmelo runs his way from the bleachers where eventually it seems like he comes in contact with an adult, with a few people who are following him. How do you remember that part of the story being told, and what we're looking at as we see him in this spot shadow kind of running from the bleachers out of the area where all of this took place?
So, you have the perspective of the prosecutor, you have the perspective of the defense attorney, then you have the perspective of the students who were there. So the prosecutor is obviously saying he's done this heinous thing. He's conscious of what he's done, guilty. He's running away, trying to get away and be anywhere but there because, he's running and then he stops and he walks a little bit. So they were trying to go along with, he's just trying to blend in like nothing happened. That's where the prosecution was going. The witnesses, the student witnesses were kind of echoing the same thing, but some of them testified to how you mentioned someone was running after him and they turned back around, but then you see 2 or 3 more going after him, continuing not to go after him. You don't see them, get in a physical altercation. More so you see them pointing out like, that's him. And that's what they were saying on the stand. Yeah. And then the defense is saying, he ran away. He was scared of what he'd just done. But their whole, key point of the whole situation is that he had opportunity to run out of the stadium and really run away, but he stayed in the stadium. He ran to the track, found an adult, and stayed there. So trying to paint, his character as like, he realized what he'd done, but not in like a malicious way, if I should say. But the thing about it, like when you point at that moment where he runs to an adult, that coach took the stand, as well as another coach who was in the vicinity, because there was this woman, this female coach, and both of these coaches, all these coaches are from different schools. There was this female coach from some different high school. The name of the high school is lost upon me right now. But anyway, she was testifying that, she saw a lot of commotion going on, a lot of yelling over where the tent was, right? And then you see those students running out, and they're like, Mrs. So-and-so, it's him. He stabbed somebody. It's him. And she's like, what's going on? And then as they're saying that, Carmelo's walking past or jogging past, and then she looks to the adult, the coach that, finally embraces him and goes to walking with him around the track. She looks at him like, hey, they're saying he stabbed somebody. Don't let him leave. That's when that coach kind of like puts his arm around him, not like in an aggressive way, just like, hey, son, come here. What are they saying you've done? What have you done? And that's when, as we were talking before a few weeks ago, how that coach was like, hey, what have you done? Hey, he put his hands on me. I told him not to. Well, if that kid dies, your life changes here forever today. Carmelo's like, he's not going to die. And the coach is like, okay, but like, if he does. And that's when that coach said he started crying and everything like that. So you had those 3 different narratives from prosecutor, the student witnesses, and the defense attorney inside that courtroom, all kind of echoing the same action, but different sentiments, like as to reasonings as to why he was running.
Yeah, and it's like 1 minute after the stabbing takes place, it's like he's at the exit to the track, it seems, and then he turns around, and then he's talking with someone who I think is the adult, and it seems like people are just starting to understand like what happened over on the bleachers, but then he's like walking by himself, and then you see another coach come up. So it is something where, and that's what made this case, I think, really difficult for the defense and to an extent the prosecution as well is like, we just don't have anything up close other than the aftermath. And we'll talk about the body cam video and what that shows here in a moment. Going through these images, because again, I hadn't seen them until they were released. You know, you had seen them before, and we had talked about Eddie, who is this teammate of Austin Metcalf, was, you know, at the time when the state was questioning him, strong prosecution witness, you know, someone who was very close with Austin Metcalf. And if I remember correctly, he kind of backed off saying that he knew Karmelo Anthony at all. And like some points for the defense, if you want to say that, was that they were arguing that he was invited into the tent, Karmelo Anthony, because Eddie waved him over. And to prove that they had some sort of relationship, the defense presented these pictures of Eddie and Karmelo. And I was not anticipating them to look as friendly as they do in these images, where it does raise some questions as to why he wasn't more straightforward, it seems, in that moment, that he knew Karmelo Anthony through his girlfriend and they had hung out before. I mean, there's a picture here of them playing Guitar Hero together, which was not something that I was anticipating just based off what he had told the jury when the state was questioning him.
Yeah, and that was a huge moment for the defense, because now it's a credibility issue, right? He's on there, you know. We heard about Eddie in the opening statements from the defense. You know, he was under there to see his friend Eddie. So everyone's awaiting this Eddie Parra kid. They're, who's this? Why, you know, what does he have to say? And, you know, of course, the question is, if this is your boy, if this is your friend, he's getting into an altercation under the tent. Why aren't you standing up and, hey, everyone chill. It's my guy. Like, we'll get out of here, whatever. So that was a question, you know, just circulating in my mind. So he gets up there and he's testifying for the state, which is already interesting enough to me because the defense made a big deal about him. I expected him to be a defense witness, and then the state calls him. And then he pretty much gets up there and says, like, yeah, I knew Karmelo, but we weren't close. I wouldn't say we were great friends. Da-da-da-da-da, going along with his state's testimony. Then the pictures you're talking about, the defense is like, oh, not good friends. Here's 10 pictures that pretty much show otherwise. You know, the Guitar Hero picture, the picture where they're making goofy faces. They're at Eddie's house for Eddie's like grandmother's birthday. All this different stuff. So it's like, you know, we're not trying to assume anything, but is Eddie lying? You know, again, the credibility issue. But the thing about it is, Chris, if Eddie's credibility is not good, does that affect the actual moment of what happened? Okay, Eddie, maybe, let's just theoretically, Eddie's not telling the truth. He's just saying whatever he wants to say. Does that have a direct correlation to what happened with the stabbing? And that, I mean, I guess that was for the jury to decide. And clearly they didn't think so. You know, one way or the other. I mean, they sent him away for 35 years. But that was still a big issue there when the defense said, hey, we have the receipts. I don't know what you're talking about up here, but you grew up with this girl. She's dating this guy. Here's pictures of you guys together. There's other witness testimonies, states witnesses that say y'all were, you know, not like buddy, but like, yeah, he went over to Eddie and, you know, they kept saying dapped him up, which is like, you know, a good handshake between the boys. Yeah. So you had testimony about you sitting next to Eddie, and one kid said he switched seats with Eddie and all that stuff. So it was a very confusing time with Eddie's time on the stand, because you heard all these differing things, and then the challenge by the defense there. So it was like, what's Eddie saying? What's the truth here?
100%, because I think when you look at these pictures, you're like, these people would be not just like friendly, but it seems like they hung out. Like the girlfriend's not even in these pictures, and like they're hanging out. You do wonder, and apparently for the jury, they felt this way. It's like, okay, so even if he was invited under the tent, whether he shouldn't have been in the tent or should have been in the tent, like the jury apparently didn't really think that really mattered, where the defense seemed to argue like, look, Karmelo Anthony was invited into this tent, whether or not like track culture or anything like that matters. And then he's, you know, the defense would argue he was the victim. Austin provoked it. Austin shouldn't have put his hands on Karmelo Anthony and all of this. Of course, when you respond with force using a knife, you know, that's something where you just wonder, you know, how strong of, you know, this gotcha moment on this witness actually mattered at the end of the day. Speaking of the knife, we have seen it now for the first time. And I'll say, like, this isn't, you know, it's a pocket knife, but it's not like a Swiss Army knife that you would use. I know we talked about like, oh, maybe he likes going camping, and they could argue that. I mean, this is I'm not a knife owner myself of something like this.
About it, but
this is not like a Boy Scout Swiss Army knife that you would have on a keychain back in the day. And I just wonder how much, when this was shown to the jury, does that, because it comes off as an intimidating knife, you know, when you look at it.
And so we didn't see the knife used in the act. We saw an exact replica. Like, so the evidence knife, I guess they have that at wherever they have it at, stored at the police station or wherever. But we saw an exact replica of it, and they were doing demonstrations. And so they saw a picture of the knife used, obviously, and you saw the body cam of the police saying, hey, there's still blood and bone fragments on this knife, when they saw it in the bleachers. Because, there was that rumor around that it was a cleat tool that he stabbed him with. And so that was swiftly debunked inside the courtroom. No, this knife is on body cam. Here it is on pictures with blood still kind of on it. Anyway, when they brought the replica knife up, got brought up during an officer's testimony. And so the prosecutor and the officer got in front of the jury box, right in front of the jury, feet away. They could reach out and touch them, just showing the knife how you can, thumb stopper, you can flip it up with one hand if you wanted to, because that was another thing about the speed at which this stabbing happened. Some kids said they turned away, they looked back, and now Austin's on the ground with a hole in his chest. It was just so fast. But one thing that I took away from that testimony from this officer is when they were doing the demonstrations, it kind of, if you weren't listening, you might not have caught it, right? The prosecutor asked him, oh yeah, heavy duty knife? Yes, sir. This is the kind you kind of carry when you're on duty. Oh yeah, we use this for cutting seat belts and things like that. It was just a real quick moment. It wasn't like a real emphasized moment, but I was like, maybe he was asking that to show, like, this is a sharp knife. I mean, you know how thick a seatbelt can be when you're cutting people out of car crashes and things like that. And, I'm pretty sure the point was to show, like, hey, but, on-duty officers carry knives like this. This might not be the most casual knife. Now, again, clearly you can buy this knife probably in your local Walmart or anything like that. It's not like you have to go on and be, a Marine veteran to get this knife, but 100%. Just showing that it's not, like, to your point, not some little Boy Scout knife, the little red cylinder with a little flip out and maybe have some scissors and a corkscrew in there. This was a real knife here.
Well, and it kind of goes to one of the questions that I think we talked about not really being answered, because it's like, this is not an illegal knife we've learned to have in Texas. It's against school policy, but it's not illegal with the length of which, how long it is for him to have it. But when you look at it, the question that comes to your mind is, why would you bring this to a track meet? And that's still, even if that's not something where, like, look, he wasn't charged with any weapons offenses, but it just didn't seem like that was really answered. And like, if just to kind of do if I was in the jury, like, when you look at a knife like this, you're like, why would you bring that to a track meet beyond the fact that question was already being asked in the first place? And the other part too, wasn't it argued that he already had this open in his backpack? What was that? I'm trying to remember.
That was it wasn't, specified, because no one really knows. But to the point I was making just a second ago, the speed at which the stab happened, they were pretty much saying, some of these student witnesses, and the prosecution, of course, was compounding upon it, was that, the whole touch me and see what happens. His hand's in the bag for, however many seconds it was in the bag before everything went down. They're trying to say that put his hand on the knife, opened it while it was in the bag. So once whatever he felt was going to happen, the knife was ready to go. Right. That wasn't, proven, as a fact. Obviously, the defense was saying, oh, it was just a warning and this and that. But the speed at which people were saying this happened, like in the blink of an eye, they didn't even realize, like, even the people who were watching what happened, Austin shoves, whatever happens in 2 seconds, they did not realize Austin was stabbed until he lifted his shirt and blood's everywhere. So that was the whole argument there. Like, this knife had to have been opened when it was in the bag. And that was the point of when they were doing the demonstration with the cop, showing, because he's holding the bag with one hand's in the bag, that you could flip it open with one hand, like with ease. You didn't have to take two hands to open it up and then, assume whatever position you're going to assume with it. So that was the whole discussion about that. But again, there was no definitive evidence saying, hey, this knife was opened.
And then just lastly, the body cam video. And we see the video that's been released, the body cam. You have the officer who was the first one to interact with Karmelo Anthony. And then there's another 17-second clip that shows the infamous moment, if you will, that, was definitely shocking to read in police documents when he says, I'm not alleged, I did it, something along those lines. And you hear him say that for the first time. It was surprising, I don't know, shocking. I mean, you think of the emotional moment, the coach who said, well, if he dies, you're going to change your life forever. And it's like, there's moments where Karmelo Anthony is so calm to the point where he can say, it's not just I'm not alleged. He says, hey, I know how this goes. I'm not alleged. I did it. But then as he get cuffs, there's like this shot of emotion, and you hear him in this like kind of weeping voice. But then, like, within 15 seconds, he's saying his name very calmly to the police. It was just, again, he's probably in shock with kind of realizing what was happening in that moment. But it was just, It's just, I don't know. What was your reaction when you saw that for the first time and just emotionally how he was in those moments?
Yeah, it was kind of a stark dichotomy, Chris, because he's been painted out to be by the prosecution, this murderer, right? This kid who he had a knife here. He intended to do these things. He went over provoking a fight to use this knife. And so when they play this body cam, and we'd heard about the "I'm not alleged I did it" thing, but when I heard the crying part, when his voice is shaking and he clearly sounds like he's emotional. When I heard that, I was like, oh, maybe there is, this heavy remorse here. He's made the worst mistake you could possibly make on this green earth. But at the same time, it's like it was a weird sensation, because you've heard all this other stuff, and then it's like, wait, he has a little bit of emotion about it. But to your point again, 15 seconds later, he's like, oh yeah, my name's this. He's spelling his name out. I go to Centennial High School. Everything's fine and whatever. So it was like, of course, people process things differently, right? I mean, you've just stabbed somebody. Unbeknownst to him at the time, he didn't know it was to death, but you just stabbed somebody at 17 years old. So I imagine the mental gymnastics going on with that. But hearing that crying was I don't know if shocking is the right word, but I didn't expect it. And the court, I'm looking around when hearing that, the jury's kind of looking at each other, and because you hadn't heard anything about that, and the fact that he's sitting there, he was kind of emotionless throughout the entire trial, of course, till the verdict came down. But hearing that emotion, but then the prosecution harped on, was it performative in the moment, right? because a few seconds later, you're all, everything's fine, not fine, but everything's mellow, everything's calm given the circumstances. So again, just a stark contrast here when you heard that, and then a few seconds later, yeah, I'm not alleged I did it. Everything's cool. This is my age. I go to this school. Blah blah blah. Just a weird difference there.
It is, yeah. That's a good way to describe it, because it was just, as you watch all this, you're also realizing, like, this is Austin Metcalf's final moments. Mm-hmm. And this is Karmelo Anthony as a free person. And I know he was out on bond, but now 35 years, if he serves the full sentence, he'll be out in his mid-50s. And just to kind of see all of it now and put it together, it's just, it was a lot to take in. Cody Thomas from Court TV, great job covering this trial. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate it.
And as always, I appreciate you for having me, man. Happy to do it.
Karmelo Anthony has filed a notice that he plans to appeal his murder conviction. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we are also now streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.